Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. There's Slaughter and the Wildlife on Rock and Metal Revival. And, you know, Jerry, over the years, I've seen so many awesome shows. And this Memorial Day weekend, I get a chance to see another one. And with us today, we want to welcome to the show one of the people I'm going to see this weekend, one of the founding members of Slaughter. I'm talking about Dana Strum. Welcome to Rock and Metal Revival.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, Dana. It is great to have you on the show. You know, I start thinking back, you know, because I've been a Slaughter fan for a long time. And does it seem like the 35 years since Slaughter was pretty much came out in 1988? Dana, does it seem that long?
Does not.
It can't.
It absolutely does not. No.
Yeah. Did you think you'd be playing these songs this 30 years, 40 years later?
Here's the truth. I myself didn't know if I'd make it to live to age 30. Then, of course, it was, I don't know if I'm going to live to age 40. Then I wanted to stop counting because it was going to touch age 50. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
But the truth is, when we first started on the KISS tour, we were fortunate and lucky to be there and just really humbled about the whole experience. And as the band started growing and growing, I don't think one guy on that stage, starting on that first tour that Slaughter did with KISS, would ever believe that we'd be playing those songs to people that are really welcoming this many years later. And once it clicked over 30, it's just we're lucky, we're fortunate, and we're grateful.
Nice. Awesome. Now, I gotta ask you about one of my favorite things is that white the white bass that you play. It's like a V offset V kind of shape. Yeah. What is that? Because it's not like something I see around anywhere.
Yeah, it's an arbor. You know what? I may be able to have Mark join us. Can you guys hit pause for a minute?
Sure. Outstanding. Hello, nice. Mark.
Hey there. How are you?
It's good to have you back on the show, Mark. It really is.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yep. I saw him call in. I'm like, hey, you know what? Doesn't hurt to ask. So, Mark, we just covered playing the songs for the 33 years and what we thought. I described that. And then he asked me about the arbor bass. I did not answer that yet because you called in. I said, let's see if we can get Mark to join.
All right. Nice. Go ahead on the arbor bass frontier. We'll take it from there.
All right. You guys ready to do it?
Yes.
Yep, we're ready.
All right. So it was Arbor was the company that actually designed it, made it. I did a drawing with them. They were a completely unknown Korean company that wanted to put out affordable instruments for kids and young aspiring musicians to sell. And I thought, you know what, I want something that people could afford to buy, and I think it would be cool. And they agreed to make this kind of flying offset V spin-off. And the original one that I had was a prototype. I had another prototype. And Mark has actually tracked down, met a guy that drove one up, I think, from Mississippi. We've got, what I'm aware of is just about the only ones that are floating around out there. A friend of Mark's and mine found Tim Kelly's original Robin guitar and gave it to Mark. And out of nowhere, a week ago in Seattle, he brought another Arbor V that at one point probably wasn't mine. It was black splattered paint. And he just out of nowhere says, look what I found. And it was actually showed up at a Goodwill store.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
Man.
Mark scoured, looked for them. I've looked for them from time to time, but the original white one has made the rounds and lasted a whole long time. And then Mark had another buddy that put carbon fiber rods in it to reinforce the neck when it broke. But it's got a really interesting sound, and I've used that thing a long time. Another thing I've been using is a Superbird bass made by a guy in Nashville, and that's been a really cool-sounding, fun bass to play and perform with as well.
Sweet.
Awesome. You know, now we've got Mark here, this is a great question. The first time I saw you guys live was in the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and All Systems Go is still one of my favorite albums. What was it like at that time
being in the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. And would you guys ever work with him again?
No.
Okay.
No, neither one of us would, but we, look, it's part of our history, going back to the Arbor bass. When Dana did design that bass years ago, I was teaching guitar at the time, and that was one of the top selling Arbor dealer was the one that I actually worked for. And so he ended up using that bass actually from Vinnie Vincent days and then forward through Slaughter. So there's a lot of history with that bass. But as far as with Vinnie, look, he does his thing, we do ours. It's been 30 plus years since he's released anything. I don't, who knows what's going to go on with the guy,
Okay.
So we're pleased to have had the success, and also we look back on that with a lot of fond memories because we had a good time. Both, the three of us, Bobby, Dana, and myself, had a really good time.
Bobby, Mark, and I communicate often. Bobby recently welcomed a new child to the world, and we had their rock and roll name and all. And the truth is, we've been in contact. Bobby's actually played with Slaughter on the White Snake tour, and he's played in Slaughter on a couple of other dates where we had double bookings. So we're still in good contact. I mean, to be honest, nobody had any contact whatsoever with Vinny from the very final tour date. Wish the guy well at whatever he's doing, and we moved on, and we're thrilled with people welcoming our songs, our sound, and our being in their face for a lot of years. And like I said to begin with, before Mark jumped on, I mean, we're both super grateful for the welcoming. Everybody out there welcoming these songs for this long, and we're among the chosen few, and we're really thankful.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Now this one's for Dana. How did you know Randy Rhoads before Ozzy came looking for a guitarist? Were you watching him with Quiet Riot, or did you know him personally before that?
No, it's a good question, and unless you dig hard through some YouTube narratives and what have you, or the Ozzy book does some narrative of it, a number of people have done their narratives. For those of you out there that are a Randy Rhoads fan or an Ozzy Randy Rhoads fan, that combination, I played at a club called the Starwood that was really the birthplace of Van Halen, the early Dokken, even really the Starwood, Troubadour Whiskey, that circuit, Motley. So much came out of there. Van Halen, again with David Lee Roth playing both there and up the street. That's where Gene Simmons originally made demos with Eddie Van Halen, he's recently been talking about. So my band played with Quiet Riot a lot. The bill together was a double bill, and there was a 3-day run that we had where we all played 2 sets a night. And in Hollywood, unlike the East Coast or often in the Midwest, you were able to play original music.
Yeah. So
you could write your crazy stuff, and if people would show up, you were the greatest band in the world. If no one shows up, you suck. So it's the truth. And so whether the club people liked either one of our music, together we would draw really well. And during Quiet Riot's performance, I would go out and just stare over the railing. How's this guy this good? And in general, no one kind of cared.
Yeah.
And it just, every day I would go home, I just didn't understand it. Like, we're in the home of record companies and A&R people and producers and talent scouts, but nobody is doing anything with this guy. And then I went to see him at a gig where Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads, I know most listeners would never believe this, but Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads played at a high school in the Woodland Hills area, close to where I lived. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go down there. And I went down, and honestly, he was playing even better. And I'm like, and there were at best 50 people there. And I'm like, I don't understand how nobody is getting this. But it goes to show you, if you see something and you think you're onto something, got to put your best foot forward and think, I think I'm right, and I'm gonna bank something on this. And in the end, there was never any money discussed. there was never anything other than I just thought this guy was great and had to be seen. At the same time, Ozzy came to the Starwood. My group that I was in had a lot of Black Sabbath-oriented music. It was very derivative of Black Sabbath. And Ozzy was told by the people at his label at the time, Jet Records, seems to us that we hear of this Sabbath-sounding band. Maybe you should just go down there. Now, imagine how haphazard this really was. You guys just go down there, listen to this guy's Sabbath thing, maybe meet him or them, and just see what you think. So the Starwood guys called and said, hey, I don't know if you are aware of this, but Ozzy Osbourne is coming down to see you guys. And I thought, we sound a lot like Black Sabbath. It doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the meeting, and it was, kind of funny, and the band got insecure that I was in because Ozzy came down and said, hey, let's go talk. And in the end, when I did sit down with him, I said, look, I know the guy that needs to do this. And I then started to approach Randy. I've got an opportunity that you have to do. You have to come down. You have to do. And he was, as many books have described, resistant. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a big Black Sabbath fan. He was curious, well, what's this guy going to do? We're really not all that into Black Sabbath. And I said, I'm not sure that he knows what he's going to do. But, I mean, this is Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath. You have to do this. And I was insistent to the point where his mom, Dolores Rhodes, may she rest in peace, would hang up on me regularly as I'd call. And all I was doing was trying to get this guy what became, an opportunity that changed not only his life, but changed music. Ozzy's life, changed music.
Yeah.
And so the more she would say, don't call here, he's teaching a lesson, I would call more. One of the people, interestingly enough, that was in another cubicle while I was doing this that overheard it was none other than Rudy Sarzo, who says to me, I remember you calling. And in the end, Randy agreed to come down to a studio that I worked at, and the rest was really just a match made in strange heaven. I thought, look, if Ozzy hears this guy for a few minutes and he doesn't get what I get and doesn't hear what I hear, then I couldn't be more wrong. If he does, he's gonna know it in seconds. Mm-hmm. And it was literally about 30 seconds or less into him hearing Randy that he looked at me stammering, telling me to tell the kid he's got a job.
Outstanding. Wow. That's a great story.
Hey, and in the end, Randy wasn't even sure that he had necessarily played for them, because one of the other comical but truthful things that happened, Ozzy, self-admittedly during that time, was often more f***ed up than not.
Yeah.
And he talks about that period vividly in his book and during many other interviews. He wasn't exactly what you'd call sober as a judge. And Randy was pretty straight-laced and wasn't some big partier and really into guitar and classical guitar. So at the time, I thought, I think I'm going to put Randy out in the big control room and dim the lights. I think I'm going to bring Ozzy in the main room with me. And in the end, it was this crazy choice because they never had to meet each other, and Randy's first impression wouldn't be this guy that was off the rails.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And little did we know that Off the Rails Like Crazy Train would become one of the big singles still played to this day. Yeah. But the truth was, he was off the rails a lot. And the first meeting of someone that you weren't sure if you liked the music, I just thought, I don't see this being a good idea. And so they actually never met that night. He got the job that night, but most people do not know. They never met that day in the studio or that night. They didn't actually meet until the next day when Ozzy said, hey, will you bring him to the hotel?
Wow. That's amazing. And now, Dana and Mark, this is with the state of the music business right now, a lot of bands from your era, not any new music. Has there ever been thought of new Slaughter music at some time?
I mean, the answer for me, there's always thought. We write, we create, We're aware that people's habits have changed. We're aware that people get things and listen to things on Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, Apple Music, Amazon. It's changed, but, both of us enjoy the style, and we still love that style. I don't think anything we do was a whole lot different than the core of what people liked. If we didn't do that, I happen to think, and you can get Mark's take on it, it'd be like hearing AC/DC not being AC/DC. You got to be who you are. We've talked about it, but we've performed live and played so much that it I think racks our brains on airplanes and walking through airports. And more recently, in the last 3 years, people have come up to us just really enjoying the stuff that the band does, and has given us some renewed confidence. I think we're working on a biopic.
Nice.
Now to really tell the whole story of Slaughter, which is so different.
Yeah.
Very, very different. We were self-written, self-produced, self-made, self-managed. It's a really different story. So if you like the music, you can blame us. If you hate the music, you can blame us.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. Now, I was lucky enough to meet your original guitarist, Tim Kelly, in Clearwater, Florida at a guitar show back in the 90s, early 90s, and what a nice guy, dude. And he had this aluminum guitar body with these holes in it, and he was just shredding. Did he use those guitars when he was with the band? They're like aluminum bodied.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's called the Able guitar. I still have mine. But yeah, I mean, he used it, but he was really more of a Robin guy. He really enjoyed Robin guitars more than anything.
Oh.
But I do have one. I have one of those Ables still.
Okay.
From that.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting. We've always liked very abstract guitars. It's been one of the things that, including Dana's bass. We like things that are not norm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're always trying to do, is search for something that's not just a typical thing, so that you have a different tonality than everybody else.
Nice.
That's cool.
Nice.
Guys,
Of all the people, I mean, I think both feel this. First of all, Mark met Tim first.
Okay.
And Mark can describe the story. It was, again, not really musical, and kind of a funny story of how Tim was met. And to keep that memory of Tim alive, I mean, if Mark's good with it, let him tell you how he really met Tim and how it happened. It's a wild story.
I met him at a barbecue. A friend of mine, it was her birthday, and he was literally over the barbecue grill, and he goes, "Hey, love your stuff with Vinny, and I'm a guitar player, but do you want chicken or weenies?" And that was the first thing he actually said to me. And inevitably, I heard him play at the party through a little amp, and I said, "You got to come down to the studio. Dana needs to hear you play." Lo and behold, he comes down to the studio as we were recording at that studio. John Sykes was recording in the other room.
Oh.
Dana thought it was John Sykes playing because he's such a great player.
Yeah.
And he came in and heard him play, and that was kind of like the beginning of, this is the guy we need. He's perfect for it, And that's how we ended up with him.
he was
Nice.
outstanding.
He was-
Yeah.
The last thing you think about when you create a group, you write the songs, you record together, you do tour. Like I said, we're grateful for that first Kiss tour. I mean, speaking of Ozzy, we're grateful for the No More Tears tour with Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
Slaughter learned a lot. We all learned a lot on that tour, and we're grateful to Poison for the Poison tours. I mean, we've played with almost everybody and their brother, Alice Cooper. But the truth of the matter is, when you embark on these tours and you travel together, I will tell you, the last thing with the fun, the humor, the good times, the crazy pictures, and the songs that have various meanings to various people out there, last thing you think you're going to do is lower that person's body into the ground from some tragic event.
Oh, I know. That's
And
so
that's
sad.
not anything you can plan for or describe, but it is something that'll stick with you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
The when Bloss, Dana and I were standing over his grave, Bloss said, "This is the last time we'll all be together," and it was true.
Wow.
Man.
It was a very strange, thing for him to say, but it was actually very,
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
It's heartbreaking.
You know, guys, I remember seeing you guys on that Kiss Slaughter tour at Alpine Valley Music Theater, and that was shortly after Stevie Ray Vaughan had died. And I remember Mark dedicating "Fly to the Angels" to Stevie, and I was in that crowd, and I have never heard a crowd sing that song or sing any song that loud, and the lighters and everything. What memories of that performance do you guys have?
Oh, that is definitely one of the standout memories that we both have, because literally they're charred Mark on the hill where he passed less than a week prior to the show.
Yeah.
And we were, I think we were all blown away by Stevie Ray's talent, but the loss of such talent. He had so much more to give. It was crazy, and I think when you get those special moments when everybody's in the music and the spirit and everything's there, there's no way to describe that. It's just, obviously you were there, you know exactly what it was. It's a very special moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to add something to that. A lot of people see the pictures of many of the 80s bands. They see the videos, and they have a preconceived notion of what the people in those bands are like.
Mm-hmm.
And, you say you can't judge a book by the cover. Both Mark and my book by the cover would be the furthest off you could ever judge. Yeah, we look like we look because that's how each one of us wanted to look through the various times of our life. We're responsible for that. But we're also people inside, and a lot of times people forget that musicians, whether they're famous, whether they're not, whether they've written songs that have connected with people, and like we were lucky enough to do or not, you're still a person.
Mm-hmm.
And Stevie Ray Vaughan, we happened to meet on the couch of a recording studio that we worked out of.
Wow.
And at one point, he was kind of half living on this couch, hanging out, playing some guitar, not playing guitar. So I remember, I'm like, that is on the couch. That's Stevie Ray Vaughan. So it actually goes back a little bit full circle. But, Mark taught guitar. He plays a lot more guitar than people realize he does.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that over the years. And he has chord inversion knowledge that dwarfs many that consider themselves, fine musicians. Now, there may or may not be a place all the time in our songs for that, but that did help create those songs.
Mm-hmm.
So Stevie Ray Vaughan was a respected talent, and it was a worldly event that hit not only home to us, but with so many. So Stevie Ray Vaughan's music wasn't like, say, Slaughter's Good Time or Meaningful Music or any of the ballads. The truth of the matter is he's a person, and he was lost in a tragic deal. We were playing there, and that was not some pre-planned thing. That was, the audience, as you know from being there, was warm, receptive, and Mark did it. It's just one of those spur-of-the-moment things that really does happen on stage. And you're right, the singing and the vibe from the audience connecting with that song, which was peaking around that time, it was pretty mesmerizing. And if the hair didn't stand up on your arms, whether you were on stage or in the audience, you might not have been among the living at that time. It was pretty special, and we talk about it often.
Yeah, that night, that might have been the highlight of the whole night. For me, and I was there to see Kiss and to see you, but that is probably the best concert moment I ever had at Alpine Valley. And I just always had to know how you guys felt, how that went that night. And
pretty much precisely like you do. A lot of times when something happens in the crowd, you feel it, you think you know it, you're not so cocksure that you do or don't, but pretty much like you do. I mean, we know the moments that have really mattered, and we do our best to catalog those, and we discuss them openly. Hey, remember this, remember that. Keep something in mind. Unlike a lot of bands out there, including many that both Mark and I have worked with in one capacity or the other, we still call each other as friends. We still talk because we want to. We don't talk because there's some business obligation. We've known each other longer than most people live.
Yeah.
And we've worked in some highs, some lows. We've seen Slaughter go from arenas, slam-packed things, to driving in vans and station wagons playing to 200 people, to working our way back up to playing in front of thousands of people again. Mm-hmm. And we made jokes about it and did the best to hold our head high, but we always saw it through. And the truth is, so you've got two people on the phone that kind of became friends and did something that people don't really do, which is keep a success story going for over 30 years.
That's
true.
Awesome. And,
very true.
You know, this Saturday night at Bratfest in Madison, you are probably getting the perfect Wisconsin weather of sunny and 80 degrees. Can you tell us, tell our listeners who maybe haven't seen Slaughter before, what they're in for with a Slaughter show?
I think the key point is our music represents a lot of good times, a lot of heart, a lot of, it's a celebration. And I think that's the one thing with our music that continues to resonate, is that our music is about the good times and remembering those moments, just like with Stevie Ray Vaughan. Even though that was a very sad situation, we still play to what's important, which is the moment. And we're the only band from our genre that wrote, produced, and still perform our music.
Awesome.
Nice.
There's no other bands were that hands-on as we were. So I think it's a little bit different when you're emotionally close to your music that way, as opposed to what other people are.
True. Now,
there's a lot of energy. If you're a virgin to seeing the 80s rock bands, you're in for a good surprise and a good treat, because it's a good vibe, it's a good time, and hey, the price is right. It's free.
There you go.
And all the brats you can eat.
Yeah. And there's brats.
Yeah, and there is. And by the way, for those of you out there, I would get there early. The estimated crowd size by the organizers on the phone to me for the Saturday night that we're performing, which is this coming Saturday night, is no less than 10,000 up to 15,000.
Nice. So
we're proud of that. We're proud, to bring our fun and the vibe there. And if you haven't heard the early Slaughter records, you can revisit them under many, many sources, including free on YouTube, the bigger of the songs. And I think you'll find good reason to come. And the history that you're seeing on the stage with people that have been there, done that, you never know how long you will or won't see that. And it's a great opportunity with what you guys are doing up there to come out and experience something you may not have experienced.
Sweet. Now, this question goes to Dana, because I've already gotten Mark's take on this before. You think the song Fly to the Angels could have benefited from adding some cowbell? Mark said it did. He said it needed a lot of cowbell, but he didn't want to say that to anybody. So myself, we really do use cowbell in our stuff. I know
exactly.
The first song on this album has a lot of it.
Yep, Eye to Eye has cowbell in it. You're right. And we do actually, it's funny you're doing that, we actually sound check the cowbell separately to make sure that sucker is in there.
Nice.
I'll go down with a vote saying of all of the songs, Fly to the Angels may benefit the least from it, but not to be a deadbeat, I'll say I appreciate the humor.
Thanks.
Guys, it has been such an honor, and from the minute I found out you guys were coming to Bratfest, I put it on my calendar, so I'm looking forward to Saturday night so much.
Definitely.
We always let the guests on the show pick the song out of the interview, so what from the Slaughter catalog would you like us to throw on?
Dina, that's up to you.
I mean, Up All Night or Fly to the Angels, or hey, how about this greedy request? How about both?
Ooh.
We can certainly. Hey, I'll tell you what, for you guys, we'll do that. And you guys are always welcome back here on Rock and Metal Revival.
We appreciate the support. We appreciate the love. I knew you did, Mark, before as well. And, I read, when the minute you hit me, Red, you heard my response.